the Grateful Crane. Once upon a time, in a snug little house, there lived a kind grandparents. One chilly winter day, the grandfather went to the snowy mountains to collect firewood. As he was busy chopping wood, he heard an odd sound, a sorrowful cry echoing through the frosty air. Following the sound, he discovered a graceful crane, caught in a tricky trap, its legs stuck in tears in its eyes. Every time the crane tried to escape, the trap tightened, causing more pain. The grandfather swiftly fetched a tool and carefully set the crane free. Instead of flying away, the crane stayed close, allowing the grandfather to tend to its leg with gentle leaves. Afterward, the grateful crane soared back to the sky, and the grandfather returned home with his firewood. Back at their home, the grandmother offered a cup of hot tea to the grandfather. The day had been so cold, with piles of snow and strong winds blowing. Using the firewood he brought from the mountains, the grandfather made their home cozy and warm. Together, the grandmother and grandfather shared the exciting story of the day. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. When the grandmother opened it, a lovely young girl stood there, shivering from the cold. Seeing her in the chilly weather, the grandmother quickly let her inside.
I got lost looking for my family. With the heavy snow, cold, and not knowing the way, I ended up here. Can I stay here tonight, if it's not too much trouble?
The grandmother and grandfather happily welcomed the girl, saying,
"Of course, sweetie. Our home may be small, but you can stay until it gets warm. Make yourself at home, and feel free to enjoy your time with us."
The grandmother went to the kitchen to prepare dinner, thinking the girl might be hungry. The girl happily offered to help set the table. They all enjoyed a delicious dinner, chatted, and sipped warm tea, filling the house with joy. The next morning, the grandmother was surprised to find the girl had already finished all the chores and made breakfast. As the snow continued outside, the girl stayed in the house, helping with chores and sharing joyful moments with the grandparents. One day, the girl expressed her wish to become the granddaughter of the grandparents. Remembering the happy times they had spent together, the grandmother and grandfather happily agreed to become her parents. They formed a delightful family and lived together in peace. Another day, the girl asked the grandfather to buy some thread for weaving at the market. When he returned with the thread, she made a request.
Please don't peek into the room while I'm weaving.
Respecting her request, the grandmother and grandfather stayed away. After a few days, the girl finally came out from the room, holding a beautiful cloth in her hands.
Grandpa, please go to the market with this. and buy me more thread after selling it.
It was a splendid and unique cloth they had never seen before. At the market, people were so impressed that they were willing to pay a high price to buy it. They repeated this process several times, and with each weaving, the value of the cloth increased. But as they noticed the girl's gradually worsening condition, the grandparents became worried and couldn't sleep at night. The grandparents tried their best to keep the girl's promise, but they couldn't help worrying about her. They were also curious about how she wove the cloth, so they peeked at her once, secretly. Upon peeking into the room, the grandfather and grandmother were shocked. There was no sign of the girl. Instead, a graceful crane was plucking its feathers to weave the cloth. The crane noticed the grandfather and grandmother watching, so it transformed back into the girl. She spoke with a sad voice.
I asked you not to peek. That's right. I am the crane you rescued from the trap. I wanted to live with you forever. But now you know my secret, so I have no choice but to leave.
The grandparents tearfully tried to hold on to the girl. However, the girl transformed back into the crane, leaving them behind. Overwhelmed with sadness, the grandmother and grandfather ran out of the house, watching the uncatchable crane soar into the sky with sorrow.